Did you call bank? I called game.
What's up, Pack Nation? It is Pack Gaming here, and you know how they added a lot of brand new classic teams in NBA 2K18. They added like 10 to 15. It was crazy. I was thinking, what else can they add, right? So the big problem of why don't they have a lot of teams, for example, the 2010 Lakers with Powell and Kobe, the Suns with Charles Barkley, the reason why they don't have those teams is because they don't have the rights to like most of the players. But I was thinking, okay, well then what teams can they make? What players are already in 2K? And they're like, hey, with these players, we can make these teams. So that's why I did in this video. I got the 5 teams that were the best in my opinion that I could make and put them in NBA 2K18 and on this list. And I'm actually just going to straight up jump into it at number 5 with the 2009 and 2010 Charlotte Bobcats. Okay. So first, like, the Bobcats are garbage. There's so many other teams you could have picked. However, all the teams I wanted to pick didn't have enough players. I wanted to have at least 7 players on a team to count it as official team, right? But this year was the best Bobcats here ever. Look at their team, right? They had prime Steven Jackson, prime Gerald Wallace. Gerald Wallace is actually in the game. It's just, there's a really complicated reason why he's on this team, but Gerald Wallace is in the game, so you can actually make this. Raymond Felton, and then young Tyson Chandler, and then veteran Larry Hughes. You also have DJ Augustine, Gerald Henderson, and also Boris Diaw, and Alexis Ajinka. This team had 9 players that are already in 2K, and there were 3 players that were in their prime on this team. Just because of this performance, this team that made the playoffs in the NBA, yes, the Bobcats actually made the playoffs sometimes. This team alone, these 3 players, Steven Jackson, Gerald Wallace, and Raymond Felton, all are on the all-time Hornets team just because of this performance. This is actually a legit team. It's not the best team ever, but it was one of the better moments in Hornets history, or Bobcats history, seriously. They were missing important players, Tyus Thompson, but it was still pretty complete as a team. Up next, it is the 2002 and 2003 San Antonio Spurs, the championship winning team Spurs. Now I know, they already have the 2004 and 2005 teams, so you're like, why would we need the 2 years before? Well, this team is actually much better than the team in 2004 and 2005 because this team still had David Robinson, the Admiral, on the team. It had, entering his prime, Tony Parker, a good Bruce Bowen, a good Manu Ginobili, not rookie, Steven Jackson, who was still okay, Steve Smith, who was still okay in his career, Steve Kerr, and Kevin Willis, 10 players on this team, and you still had Tim Duncan, so the Twin Towers on the team. So you have all the main pieces of the Spurs history with Manu, Timmy, and Tony, plus you have David Robinson and Bruce Bowen and Steve Smith. This is a really, really good team. It's really fun to use. It's an upgraded version of the 2004-2005 team. The only player they're missing on this team that's important is Malik Rose, who's actually pretty important on the team. But still, this is a pretty solid team, and I'm pretty sure they could get Malik Rose eventually. Now a team I've been begging 2K to add. At number 3, it is the 2008 and 2009 Orlando Magic. This Magic team actually made it to the NBA Finals and had to face Kobe, which is never a good thing. And this would be a really, really fun team to use. They have prime Dwight Howard, who was the defensive force and was unstoppable when he went to dunk or drive in the paint. You had Rashard Lewis, who's in this prime of his career. You have Jameer Nelson, who was honestly one of the better point guards in the NBA at the time. You had JJ Redick, who back then is the same JJ Redick as it is now. JJ Redick has not changed. He's still an amazing 3-point shooter, and he was back then. Marcin Gortat, who was kind of the similar player. He was a very strong post player, and he was good. You had Courtney Lee, who was a great defender and a great 3-point shooter, and then the coach, the Cavs coach, Tyronn Lue, Mr. got stepped over. He was actually also on the team. This is a pretty complete team too. You were only missing Hedo Turkoglu and Rafer Alston. So you weren't missing like too much. Hedo was actually a pretty important player on this team. But besides him, you weren't really missing anyone really important. So this is a pretty complete team. Super fun to use. And prime Dwight. At number 2, it is the 2000 and 2001 Milwaukee Bucks. This is honestly the only early 2000s team that's missing from 2K, and they absolutely should have been added. They were the 2nd seed in the East, and they were led by Ray Allen and Glenn Robinson. The problem is that Glenn Robinson is not in 2K, believe it or not. So that's really the only player that would be missing. They also missed Tim Thomas, but still Glenn Robinson's like the important one because Ray Allen and Glenn Robinson were equal in points per game for the team, so they both led them equally. But this would be the only team that would have prime Ray Allen. And then you also have prime Sam Cassell, who's an 85 overall. You would have Michael Redd, who was still young in his career but doing pretty good. Jerome Kersey, Lindsey Hunter, Scott Williams, Darvin Ham, and Irvin Johnson. So not bad at all players, and the most important part is that you have prime Ray Allen. And the last team on this list at number 1, it is the 2013-2014 championship winning Spurs. Almost every single player on this team are already in NBA 2K18, and this was one of the better teams in NBA history. You already have the Heat with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Might as well add the team that they had to play against the most, the San Antonio Spurs. On this team, you had still rocking and balling hard Tim Duncan. You had Kawhi Leonard, who was still young at the time, but still being one of the better defensive players in the NBA and scoring very well. You had Tony Parker, who honestly was probably better than Kawhi Leonard at the time. Tony Parker was one of the best scorers on this team for most of the season, but still Tony Parker at the third player. You have Manu Ginobili, who was still really good at the time. Danny Green, who was setting records that season, 3-point shooting wise, before Curry ever existed, really. You had Thiago Splitter, who was a center. You had Patty Mills, who was doing good at the time. You had Boris Diaw, who was awesome. Marco Bellinelli, who was an amazing 3-point shooter. I think he won the 3-point contest that year. I'm not sure, though. You had Corey Joseph and Aaron Baines, who loves to get posted for some reason. But this team was amazing. It's, again, the big three with Kawhi and Danny Green at the time. Sure, I know you're probably like, we already have Spurs teams, but this was like one of the best Spurs teams ever. And that's it for this list, guys. Those are the teams that you can make right now in NBA 2K18. Did I miss any? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like my channel, give it a sub, and I'll see you guys next time.
Did you call bank?